So let's go ahead and get started off with the news of the day that hit last night was official this morning. North Carolina FC is on official hiatus. And this gets announced right before they're going to be taking on Rhode Island FC at home for to go on to the Eastern Conference playoff final. There's a lot to break down here. John, you wrote a fantastic article over on Backhill that everybody should be reading without spoiling too much because people should go read it. John, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, important to contextualize why this is happening, where Steve Malik, who is a very rich person by pretty much anyone else's standard, but maybe not rich by the standard of supporting a professional soccer team. He has run this club for a little bit more than a decade at this point. In 2017, he acquires the rights to an NWSL franchise, moves Western New York, and has them become the North Carolina Courage. And the NWSL is a bigger deal. It is more profitable. They have better attendance. And in 2024, Malik decides, I need additional investment on that side, and maybe I want to sell the team. And then I want to do the same thing in the USL Championship. So the Courage, initially, they've got a more than $100 million sale on the table. That falls through at the last minute. So now it becomes, there's this guy with the resources getting squeezed. Something's got to give. And in this case, it's the men's team in the USL Championship. And in the article, I kind of break down why this is a big deal, that a club like North Carolina that has done everything right on the field is in a decent stadium situation, leads the way in terms of academy production. If they decide this isn't worthwhile unless it becomes 2028 and D1 solves our financial problems, that's something that's going to have ramifications elsewhere. And yes, there are pieces of the North Carolina story that are unique, but I think it's something to worry about. And before I get off the soapbox, I do want to say it's a terrible situation for John Bradford, the players in North Carolina, to have this happen in the middle of a playoff run. And then the idea that 2 months from now, you don't get severance pay if you were on a multi-year contract. Everything about it throws these people's future into question in a way that is a shame.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's one of those situations too, where they recently, North Carolina just came back to the championship after this self-relegation. And so it's clear that they have these sort of discussions about how we're going to make it work and how we're going to finagle this and that. And they made a really big deal of returning in 2024 to the championship. This whole faux motion and all that sort of stuff. There was all this chatter about it, and we're back and all this sort of stuff. And 2 years, it's oh, actually, sorry, we're gonna sit out until D1 starts. I don't know. To me, it's tough because people understand momentum, in a specific way, and you can say, hey, we have momentum and we're building towards D1, and people aren't going to believe it if you are also stopping operations. This is the reality, is that there's no momentum if people can't see it. And I can't understand necessarily how North Carolina FC shutting up shop when they've struggled, despite the fact that they do quite well have done well on the field this year, won a home playoff game. The fact that they haven't been able to connect in a way that gets people out to that stadium, the way they haven't been able to build a base that really energizes the local community. I don't know what 2 years off is going to do for you in that respect. How are people going to be more energized in 2 years when it allows Charlotte FC to take more of a foothold? And obviously, I just don't understand what the end game is here. And to me, this just sort of reeks of PR wise, how do we soften the blow of shutting down operations, rather than smelling oh, this is a genuine plan to come back stronger. To me, it just feels like a way to explain away the fact that they aren't going to be playing for the next 2 years, at least, if they ever do come back.
Or it's a way to try to desperately attract a buyer.
That too.
But yeah, I mean, like, and let's like entertain that they come back to this Division One. Is it even appropriate for a team to do this? Like, as far as like the integrity of the competition and the leagues, like to just say I'm sitting out the next 2 years of championship so I can go to D1. What happens when you go back to D1 and then you get relegated? Are you going to bolt again? Like, it's just there. Yeah, I'm upset with the league for even entertaining this nonsense. Like, I get it. They're in a precarious situation because they are going all in on this new system that they're going to build in 2028. And I guess they need to maintain a foothold in all the biggest markets to start that division. But, it's a terrible look to allow the owner to do this. And then also with the USL Players Association right now fighting for the CBA, the players are screwed over because right now they only get 2 months pay, where the demands for the renewal would be 75% of the guaranteed contract. So I at least out of this, I hope that the rest of the owners give the USLPA what they want, because I think the remaining players deserve it after this.
And the one last thing I'll say to your point, Alex, is the fact that, like, what message does it send to the teams that they're expecting to operate in the championship for the next 2 years?
Yeah, is it going to encourage other owners to do the same thing? Like,
right,
it's a terrible look. Like,
why would anybody continue opening their stadium if the idea is it's like, oh, well, we could just take a couple of years off, save some money, and then really pour all our money in once D1 is here? Like, obviously, that's not the conversation that's happening with the rest of the league. And they've basically set the precedent that it is a possibility for anyone who's considering, like, how do we make it to D1? This is an option, and I agree that it's a bad precedent to set.
Yep.
There's a lot of places I want to take this. I'm just going to kind of hit them in order as like I was kind of presented. First things first, John, you mentioned the money side of this. You mentioned in the Backyard article as well, that, he got $92 million, right, from selling off a startup, which, by the way, I wish I could have $92 million. But let's say, Alex, $92 million just hit your bank account, and you're going to go to Arthur Blank down at Atlanta United and say, I'm going to give you $92 million right now to sell me Atlanta United. How does that conversation go for you?
Slams the door in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
If you walk up to the owner of Louisville City and say, I will give you $92 million right now. I know the Lynn family is very rich, but if you give them $92 million right now, do you think there's at least a conversation?
Probably not.
No, not with the stadium assets, but more of a conversation than Atlanta.
Yeah. So what I'm just saying, like, the money here, the money discrepancy is, we're talking millionaires to billionaires, and we hear this getting talked about all the time when, you have CBA conversations happening in the NFL, MLB, NBA, et cetera, et cetera. But these are legitimate millionaires owning this, and millions of dollars burns up a lot faster than billions of dollars. And so we're looking at someone who just recently last year was trying to sell both the Courage and North Carolina FC. And based off of rumblings, again, no concrete facts here, part of the reason why they took the jump up to the championship was to build up the value of North Carolina FC, because it builds up the net worth. Will it cost you more liquid money? Yes. But the net worth itself makes you go up. If I bought North Carolina FC today, my net worth goes up, even if I am more in the red in my actual bank account. So that is something that they're looking at. The other thing that you could be looking at here is, you're going for that D1 league. how much would that affect your net worth as well? That's something else that would drive up that price. To me, this feels like just we're putting this in the shop window and hoping somebody buys it off of us on the idea of going to D1 and raising their net worth. This just feels like a shop window thing to me. On the USL player side, they deserve to be paid. Obviously, we've talked about this so many times. And if there was anything that the USL owners did not want, it was to give the USL Players Association more ammo to fight against them with. But this is just another thing that they have right there of, oh, yeah, in another bargaining chip, we want more security on our contracts, not just year-long contracts that they wanted. If you decide to shut up shop, pay us for our full contract, not just those extra 2 to 3 months. And then there was the last bit, and I totally lost it. So it doesn't matter. I will go ahead and get off my monologue.
I do think the point about these teams being in the shop window, when you look at the financial numbers across the league, and at least the small sample that we have that's public for teams that have listed themselves for fan partial ownership, every club in the USL effectively is losing $3 to $7 million a year at a minimum. Every owner is basically banking on, okay, we're going to get to 2028, Pro Rel will be there, D1 will be there, and then the valuation skyrockets. The more I see things like this from North Carolina, the less detail we have about what this is actually going to look like come 2028. I don't see how it's going to come together. I don't know if the media money, the sponsorship is going to be there. Is attendance just going to jump up because we're saying, oh, it's D1 now? There are so many what if questions ahead of that point in time. I'm worried that North Carolina is maybe the start of teams realizing that they're not cut out for the continued losses with that hope of profitability, but not a guarantee of it at the end of the day.
Which reminds me of what I was going to say. One thing that I think the USL really screwed the pooch on here was also reiterating the Division I thing. Because if North Carolina just said we're going on hiatus and we're putting in an application for Division I, we would have probably been like, man, that's crazy. But the fact that the league is reiterating that, I think is insane by them. I do think that if they had just kind of ignored that part or did not include it in any press release, now maybe they legally have to say they have submitted an application, but they could have left it at that. Then maybe, what we're talking about of, is this going to set a precedent for teams to close up shop for 2 years? I don't think we'd be having this conversation. The fact of the matter is that if these stadium standards get changed, like we all assume they will have to for there to be a Division I, Tony Scholes will talk about it at some point. If those standards do change, then what was folding for, right? If the narrative, the top down is pushing to these clubs that the stadium standards will be changed, that's the way we'll have Division I, then why would North Carolina be looking for a 15,000 seater, right? This just feels like there's a lot of things that the league, they love to announce things, and now they didn't have a concrete plan in place, because they could have said the professional standards are changed, we're getting them changed, we've already talked to them, it's already set, it's good to go. Then that 15,000 number would not even be in this conversation, right? We'd be having another conversation, because now it's, will North Carolina come back? Oh, it's only if they add 5,000 more seats to the stadium, or if they build a completely new stadium. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here that come from the USL is just likes to announce crap.
Yeah.
So, is there any other North Carolina talk we want to have?
Said my piece.
There's about to be a massive just lottery at this point for players. There's about to be a lot of really good teams who are about to get a whole lot better, and it's about to be crazy. So there is that.